Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me start off by saying that I'm going to try to put out a video at least once a day, 4 to 5 days a week, but we'll see how that goes, okay? But I wanted to cover a couple of things on this video. First, we're going to talk about Ray Dalio and his prediction on the studies that he's done on what's going on and on cycles. I like that he studies cycles because things happen time after time after time. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine a few days ago, and I said, you know what? 100 years from now, after we're both gone and no one remembers us, I said, there's going to be another two guys sitting in a car or sitting at a dinner table somewhere talking about the same thing that we're talking about. Meaning what? That everything is a cycle. That what we're going through today, the next few generations ahead of us will also go through. And also on the second half of this video, I'm going to go over a quick article with you that is on preparedness, because I just don't want to come here and talk about, oh my God, we're going to war. You know, it happens, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what we have to prepare for. However, I also want to try to give you a little bit of something that you can take a look at that maybe you can use to better your preparedness stance. Here, Ray Dalio says, we are in wars. He warns of civil war and soaring debt. And any one of you out there listening to this, do you disagree that we are on the trajectory, at least in the United States of America, toward another civil war? If we haven't already started one, just not the hot type of civil war or wars that we're used to seeing. And as far as soaring debt goes, do I really have to get into that? Well, I'm going to get into that for a little bit here later on in this video, just so that you can see how far along we've come in just a short 5 years. Ray Dalio says something bad is coming at some point. And what I think he means is that something really bad is coming at some point. Because the only way that this system by which we are governed today will be kept together is if the people come together and ask, can you please give me this? Can you please enslave me more than I already am, as long as you can take away some of the pain? How many of you remember those nice stimmy checks that we got 5 years ago or so? You remember me on here, all of the flag that I was getting from other people? AP, people need those stimulus checks. And I was saying, that's just going to make the price of everything explode. It's going to make the price of everything double, go up 3 times. But what people don't understand in general is that inflation is when the money supply is increased in the economy, which is what happened around 2020 or so, 2021. Right? And it takes a little bit of time for that money to actually manifest into the price of things going up. So as all of that money was being printed and just being handed out to pacify a population, that population that took that money didn't understand that they were going to be paying back that same money that they took, but tenfold for the rest of their lives. The Bridgewater founder has warned about a brutal AI war. This is something different now that we have to contend with in this world, is the AI influence on everything. And he says that the AI war is going to be between the United States of America and China. And the UK is in a debt spiral. I believe that every country in the world is in a debt spiral, except that there are different levels. And before I get too far into this, let me remind you that I put out a video yesterday about how you can very cheaply light your entire house. So do you like having light, right? If there's a power outage, if you like having light and want to know of a very inexpensive way that you can literally light your entire house during a power outage, take a look at the video that I put out yesterday. I'll try to leave a card up here somewhere, either here or here. I always forget where they appear. And these videos that I put out, ladies and gentlemen, especially the prepping on the cheap videos, they're just common sense videos. But if you don't know it, you don't know it. And if you don't know that something's available, then you don't know that it's available. And that's why I like putting those out. And those types of things that I do cover is because I use them myself. I buy them. I'm like, okay, this looks pretty good. Okay, I think this is a great thing to have as a prep. But I digress. Now, Dalio is warning that the U.S. may be entering a new kind of civil war amid rising inequality and debt, as well as a breakdown in the global geopolitical order. This is a really bad war because what he's saying is this is going to be an internal war and it's also going to be an external war at the same time and at very many different levels. Dalio said that the forces which shaped the world were all now being disrupted and that America served as a prime example of this. And you can see what's going on in the street. And that's one of the cycles that I've talked about in the past. The civil unrest cycle, which remember the last one occurred, which was about as bad as this one is right now, occurred sometime in the 60s. And he says we have a civil war of some sort that is developing in the United States, pretty much because half of the population, for the most part, doesn't agree with the other half. Unfortunately, one half, the half that in the past has been the one that would accept your opinions and such, they don't want to listen to your opinions. If your opinions don't match with theirs, then they think that you ought to be erased. Dalio has this year issued several warnings about the risk posed by America's rising national debt, which currently stands at a staggering $38 trillion, ladies and gentlemen. Incredible. Additionally, the billionaire has also highlighted the country's debt-to-income ratio of roughly 120%. Debt-to-income ratio means that our GDP, or gross domestic product, which is like what the country earns as a whole country in a year, is now a lot less than what our total debt is. So for example, let's say that the GDP of your household was $80,000 a year, but you spent $100,000 a year. Then that means that your debt to your GDP ratio, or vice versa, is about 125%. Because you spend about 25% every year more than what you bring in. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do something today besides giving this video a like and sharing and leaving a comment, take a look at the US debt clock and compare it to the one that was 5 years past. And I just want you to concentrate on one specific thing. Check this out. Today, or this year, 2025, so far, government spending is about $7.4 trillion. However, the tax revenue from the government is only about $5.5 trillion, so roughly a $2 trillion difference. But concentrate on this number, $5.5 trillion. Now let's go back 5 years to 2020. Remember that in 2025, the government brings in about $5.5 trillion? Well, had we just stayed the course from 2020 forward, and not made government bigger than what it is, we would have pretty much everything that we need in order to pay for government spending just with the taxes collected. U.S. federal spending in 2020, $5.7 trillion. So ladies and gentlemen, the point here is that a government has to continue to add debt in order for it to stay alive. And the reason for that is because we are in a fiat currency system, and the way that a government retains its power is through the nation's money. Everything that the government does, it needs money for. Do you think that the Secret Service would come to work every day if they weren't getting paid, period? Do you think that the military would work if they weren't getting paid, period? I would say not. Now, for those of you that may be new here, I always leave the link to these articles on a pinned comment, along with anything else that I may talk about, so that you can go ahead and revisit it on your own if you like, because I don't always cover the entire article that we're looking over. Dalio says that when debt rises relative to income, it's kind of like an artery that starts to get squeezed out and there's less blood flow going through it. And that really is true, because the more debt that you have, the more productivity that you lose. Let's say, for example, you have $100,000 in debt. Well, that debt comes with what? With interest, meaning that not only are you working hours, giving of your labor in order to pay back the principal of that debt, but your hours are now less productive, because you have to use some of your hours just to pay for the interest on that debt. And that is why it's very concerning that our debt to GDP ratio now is at 120 plus. Now listen to this number. This is pretty crazy. The debt held by the public amounted to 99% of U.S. gross domestic product last year. That's incredible. That's just by the public. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that number is projected to reach 116% of GDP by 2034. I think it'll get there way before then, unless something crazy happens. All right. Surging debt is just part of the problem. According to Dalio, global conflicts and wealth inequality are also creating an environment with plenty to worry about, like the civil war that he's talking about, because people are getting tired. That 95+% of people in the U.S. that either earn a wage or a salary and get taxed like crazy. It's tax after tax after tax. And they see that 0.1%. who pretty much just use money as a tool to make themselves richer at the behest of the people that are actually earning the money and making the country run. People are starting to get tired of not being able to afford hot dogs at the store and not being able to afford to send their children to the hospital or get medicine, etc. You can fill in the blank. Everyone's story is different. He says, we have a breaking down of the monetary order. We are going to change the monetary order because we cannot spend the amounts of money. So we have that problem. We are having profound changes in our domestic order, and we have profound changes in the world order. Such times are very much like the 1930s. And he says here, I've studied history. This repeats over and over again. Why? Because it's a cycle. It's the human cycle. We are currently in the fourth turning of the four turnings of the human experience. And when he was asked about the worst case scenario, he pointed out that a potential breakdown of the dollar's role as a store of wealth combined with internal conflict beyond the norms of democratic policies and escalating international tensions, potentially even military conflict. These breakdowns have occurred before, he said. The existing monetary and geopolitical order began in 1945, Bretton Woods, I believe that is. These systems go in cycles, and I worry about the breakdown, particularly because it doesn't have to happen. And just take a look at the cycles from the past and what they predict that they will be in the future. If you take a look here, the War of 1812 is where this chart starts. And then you've got about 50 years later or so, Civil War. And then World War I. And then Vietnam. And then this is where we are right now. Roughly right here is where we are. And by the time that we get up here, I believe that's going to be probably between 2028 and 2032. We're going to be in some kind of a conflict, ladies and gentlemen, that will be in the history books. And he says here, finishing it off, that one of the catalysts that may go ahead and bring us to some kind of conflict, either internal, external, or both, is that it could be a breakdown in the monetary system, something that a lot of people have been talking about for a long time. And the reason that so many people talk about, in my opinion, that this monetary system is eventually going to break down, that it's going to fail, is because it's inevitable. It's mathematics. There's no fiat currency in the history of mankind that has ever survived. Every fiat currency has always gone to zero. And here in the United States of America, our fiat currency actually has defaulted. We have actually defaulted a couple of times, actually 3 times in my opinion, here in the United States. It's just that people were gaslit and taught to think how they want you to think so that you can accept what they're telling you need to accept in order to be happy. Same thing that's going to happen again. Something terrible is going to happen. Not sure exactly what it is, maybe multiple things, but the people are going to accept what the government says. Remember what happened 5.5 years ago? Right? Remember the 6 foot between each other? You have to wear this piece of stuff on your face that the box itself says this will not protect you against anything, and all of the crazy rules that the average person followed while the leaders were out there doing the exact opposite that they told us to do. And people did it. Why? Well, because they needed that stimmy, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, a lot of you are probably going to get upset at me saying that because you'll think that I'm talking directly at you. But if you were one of those, then please learn from the past and understand that actions have consequences. And the actions that we took in order to comply with a government that, in my opinion, was not there for our behalf or on our behalf, we are paying for those consequences today. Trust me, back then, if everyone started shouting, we don't want to shut down, we want to go to school, if everyone started shouting and everyone went on a work strike and says, none of us are going to work. Pretty much what I'm saying is if we were unified, none of what happened back then would have happened. And do your own research. But if you take a look at the mortality rate during that time, it's a lot less than what they said. I think it's less than 2% altogether after everything was said and done here in the U.S. And I did put up a video on Rumble a long time ago because I couldn't put it up on YouTube, where I picked the 5 states that had the most stringent policies during the pandemic era and the 5 states that had the most loose policies. Some of them didn't even have any restrictions at all. And the mortality rate for the 5 states that had the least restrictions was less than the 5 states that had the most. Do your own homework and do your own research. But that doesn't seem right to me. That seems like fuzzy math, right? Fuzzy math. Here he finishes saying that history is shaped by 5 major forces: monetary cycles like credit and debt, internal political conflict, shifting global power dynamics, technological change, and natural disasters such as pandemics. In his view, all 5 are currently in play. 20 medicinal herbs every prepper should grow for survival. Now, before I get into this, let me go ahead and give a shout out to Jase Medical. Everyone needs to have whatever kind of medication they may be on or that they think they may need during times when they cannot find it anywhere else. Go check them out. I'll leave their link. I also have a coupon for like $10 off. I believe it's $10. I haven't even looked at it. But for like $10 off, and go check and see what they have. Just scroll up there and check and see what they have and see if any of the things that they have would help you preserve your health during times in which you cannot find the medication that you need. But getting back to these 20 medicinal herbs that every prepper should grow, let's take a look at the list. And to tell you the truth, I took a look at the first few, and some of them I don't even know what they are. But I'm just going to go ahead and go through them very, very quickly, and I'll leave the link to this so you can come and revisit it. Evening primrose, California poppy. If any of you have any personal knowledge about these, put it in the comments. Like, what do you use evening primrose for? I'm not going to read through all of this. I'm just going to go ahead and go through them because I want to respect your time. Calendula. Lavender. I know what lavender is. I know it smells good, but what can it do for you? Yarrow, feverfew, camellia. Let's see. Marshmallow, chicory, echinacea. I think that's a Spanish word. Sage, peppermint, yes. Stinging nettle, rosemary, comfrey, golden seal, nasturtium, mullein, spilanthes. Oh, a toothache plant. Another thing that's good for toothache is cloves. Clove oil or cloves. I remember my mom used to give me cloves whenever I had a toothache. And self-heal. So go ahead and leave in your comments if you have any personal experience with any one of these and let us know what you use them for. Having said that, God bless every one of you. Thank you very much for joining in. Go check out the last few videos that I've put out here in the last week or so. I won't put something out just to put something out. So if I miss a day, it's maybe because there's really nothing out there that I could find that I can talk about in order to encourage you to continue to prep or start prepping. I love you all. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.